welcome back. Today, as some of you know anyways, I've been working on an acoustic guitar, my first one. Built an electric guitar a few years ago for my son, and this year I'm trying to build an acoustic. So I'm kind of in the middle of it right now, and I'm finding out that I need some Luthier clamps. Basically, a Luthier clamp is nothing more than kind of a standard clamp, except it's got a much longer throat on it. So, for example, this standard clamp, but this one's even deep and it's only 4 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make some Luthier clamps out of this hardwood, and I'm gonna measure them probably 8 inches long. Therefore, when I get the back support on it, I'm getting about a 6-inch throat. So I'm gonna go about 1.5 inches thick, or 1.5 inches wide, I should say. This is about 3/4 of an inch thick, nominally. So I'm gonna get this marked up, and we'll come back and we'll get these cut. All right, so now I got these marked out. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take them over to the table saw. I'm gonna rip these at 1.5 inches. I'm gonna set up a stop block on the chop saw, and I'm gonna chop them off at 8 inches long. I plan on making 5 of the clamps, so I'm gonna need 10 of these pieces. Let's go on over to the table saw. All right, so we've got all 10 of these cut. Now, while I was doing the measuring, I decided instead of going 8 inches, I went at 8.5. It just gives me just a little bit more reach on this clamp. When I go in the soundboard in the hole in the guitar, I want to be able to reach back to the bridge and clamp that down. So 8.5. Anyways, what I did is I came in 1 inch from this end, made a mark, 2 inches from this end and made a mark. This will be the end that actually does the clamping. Came back, made a 1/4 inch line down here. I'm gonna set up my router table with a start and a stop block, and I'm gonna route this out. All 10 of them need to be the same. Okay, got those all routed. If you notice when I was routing, I didn't take the whole 1/4 inch in one pass. You gotta take that a little bit at a time. Otherwise, you're gonna bite into this grain and you're gonna have a bit of a mess on your hands. So ask me how I know that happens and I'll tell you. So anyways, take a little bit at a time, you'll wind up with this. So what we're gonna get to is eventually something like this, right? We're gonna have this piece of aluminum. And again, I've seen these with everything from aluminum to steel to wood. So pick whatever material you have laying around, that's what I did. And I'm gonna try aluminum. So this is gonna get fastened with pins here, hard fastened to this piece. This is going to be slotted and is actually going to have pins that work against it. And we'll put a little cam at the end, split this one, and this will be able to clamp down to that. Make sense? So what we'll do now is we'll get these marked up for the slots. So I'm just going to slot all of these on the bandsaw, roughly the thickness of this aluminum. Now, 5 of them are going to be fairly tight. Want that to be a nice tight fit. We'll get pins in there and lock that in. The top 5 we're going to want just a little bit wider so that it slides up and down easily on the aluminum. So we're going to get these marked up now, get them cut on the bandsaw. I'm going to drill first so I can draw lines up to that. We'll cut up to that on the bandsaw. Just take that piece out, be nice and clean. Okay, so what I did here was I just set up a back fence on the drill press. That way I just put all my blocks, or the 5 bottom ones I should say, right against it. All I have to do is line up in one direction. I don't have to try to freehand this and kind of line up in 2 directions. So what I'll do now is I'll just put these all on here, get these drilled through. We'll get these lines drawn on this and get this cut out in the bandsaw. We'll do now is we'll draw these lines. This happens to be a top unit. This one's drilled at 1/4 inch. This one is one of the bottom units, or bottom jaws, I should say. This one's drilled at 3/16, which of course is the thickness of my aluminum. Now the only reason I'm marking one of each is because when I go over to the bandsaw, like everything else we've done so far, is I'll just set up a jig to where I can just slide this in there nice and straight, cut that one out, and then cut that one out. All right, so what I want to show you now is how to set up a very simple jig on your bandsaw to cut out these slots. You remember I drilled the holes. Now I'm going to cut the slots out for this, and it needs to fit that 1/8" aluminum bar stock that I have. So I'll show you a very simple way how to set up a jig so you get nice straight cuts. Let me adjust the camera and I'll talk you through. All right, so what I'm going to walk you through now. Take 2 straight edges and 2 of these pieces. So remember, this is what we want to fit into this slot. So when I get a nice straight cut on your bandsaw, sometimes that's tough. At least it is for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these straight edges, put this spacer in there, because remember, that's the distance, the opening that we want to cut. So we're going to push these together, and you're going to line up the bandsaw blade to the outside of this hole. Got it? With this bar stock on this side. So then when I remove the bar stock, I can put it on this side and cut the other line, if that makes sense. We'll show you here in a second. All right, now we're ready to cut. You'll notice that I'm going to leave the bar stock in because that's going to be my guide for a nice straight cut. So we'll cut one side. I'll move the bar stock over and we'll cut the other side. Let's see how it does. Look at that, perfect, nice and straight. This goes in there nice and easy, perfect cut. All right, you see that I marked these blocks. I got about 1/8 of an inch, we'll call it a flap because I don't know the correct term for it, but about 1/8 of an inch flap. That'll allow this, when we put the cam in here and we twist it, that will allow this to flex enough. So I'm gonna go drill about 1/8 of an inch hole right there. I came in 6 inches. I drill 1/8 inch hole right there, which will allow this to flap. We'll cut this slot after that. I've already got blocks set up on the drill press. I'm gonna go over there and drill these so that they're all identical. All right, I guess I never really said. So the reason we're gonna drill this hole is so that when we do put the cam in there and it flexes, it stops this from cracking. It kind of gives it a dead end, if you will, when you flex that grain. So it'll stop this from splitting when you use the cam. All right, if you recall the jig we had set up on the bandsaw to cut these nice straight slots, we've got a very similar setup now to cut this flap. I just want to cut in there all the way up to the hole and then back it out. So let's get that set up. We'll get these cut and then we'll get the slot for the cam. All right, now what we want to do is we want to route out this slot for the cam. I've got some straight edges set up here on my router table. I've got a mark as far as I'm going to push in. I want to go in about 3.5 inches or so for this cam. I got a stop mark on here. Just want to take off a little bit at a time so we're not messing anything up in the wood. Just got to be patient on this one and take a bunch of passes. All right, so I made a paper template for my cams. Put some pine through the planer, plane it down to 1/4 inch. Cut out my cams. Got my holes all marked, drilled out. Now it's time to put in the pins. All right, so got all these nailed in. Slide this down, cam locks it in. Pretty sweet. All right, well, there you have it. Here's a Luthier clamp. So the way I'm going to use this is when I get ready to clamp on the bridge, move the camera here, this guitar that I'm making, these jaws go in the guitar like this. get the bridge in place. I'm able to slide this down and hold that in place. Like so. Gotta hold that in place while I get it glued. So that's my first video, actually. Hopefully this helps you if you need to make some luthier clamps or even just some long jaw clamps. So until next time.